And welcome back to the Men's Journal Everyday Warrior podcast. I've got Jason Wersland here of Therabody, which used to be Theragun.
Yep.
Up until, when did you guys do the name change?
The end of 18, beginning of 19.
End of 18, because you were branching into other products.
Yeah.
Or it would have siloed you guys within.
Exactly. We realized like this is way bigger than Theragun.
Yeah.
And that's really what drove it. We didn't know that there was going to be these acquisitions within months of it happening. It was really kind of crazy.
Which, I was going to say congratulations on that, because, I used to use the pad, which I think you guys acquired, Power Dot, before you guys got that, and those things are awesome on the road, especially for my back pain sitting on flights. But we'll get to all that. So you got an interesting story, man. Everyone probably thinks Therabody was an overnight success, much like everything they think on Instagram and social media is these people just had it made. They didn't have to work hard. But give the audience just sort of your background, family, where you started, and what you were doing, which eventually led to Theragun and now Therabody.
Well, I grew up in Utah. We talked about this earlier. Yeah. I'm the oldest of 7. Yeah, and our family had a farm, so I spent summers and spring and things like that out of the farm. And you kind of learn to be resourceful in those situations. Not realizing at the time, but it was like a video game. Like I just grabbed a tool, a couple of things I'm going to need later in life. I was never really injured as an athlete. I played rugby and soccer and American football, and like I had a lot of fun. I excelled a lot. I thought I was pretty good at a lot of things. I never had an injury where it was like season ending. We were talking about this earlier about failing fast. I had a situation where I had a guy embezzle a bunch of money from me, and I had to file bankruptcy. So
embezzled from Theragun early on?
From another company that I had. So I had a company in this is going to age me. 1998, 99, 2000. It was a flooring company. My dad was in the flooring business, so I grew up in the flooring business. I installed floor. Like I look at floors all the time and like think about how I could make it better.
We're cheap as hell here.
No, this is perfect. The caulking looks great and everything. But I was in that space. I had my own business. I was doing custom floors on a lot of houses up in Heber and Deer Valley.
Yeah.
Deer Crest was a development that I helped with back in the day. Found out this guy was embezzling a bunch of money from me, and I looked at it as an opportunity to start over. Like, okay, now what am I going to do with my life? I didn't want to be in the flooring business. Anyone that I saw in that was 40 years older than me was not happy. So I'm like, you know what? I've always wanted to be a chiropractor. I'm going to go to chiropractic school. Our neighbor growing up was the chiropractor for the Utah Jazz. Craig Bueller, such a great dude. But I grew up watching him work on Karl Malone and John Stockton. They'd literally come to his house. He had like a home office, and the door would face our house, so I could always see if people were coming in and out of there. And it was 15 feet from our borders, like our boundary borders, so it wasn't that far.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, and he's like, come on in. So I would watch him do what he would do with his hands, and I'm like, I want to do that. Like I want to know the things he knows. Hey, Craig, can you get me in? He wrote me a letter of recommendation to Los Angeles, which is Cleveland Chiropractic in Los Angeles, strangely enough. And I started school. So I went, I was still 29. I was 29, still 29. I was 29, started chiropractic school, thinking it was going to take me 3 years. 7 years later, I'm not done yet because I didn't pass national boards. A couple of times I was working at my dad's flooring store trying to make it happen.
Yeah.
And I realized I can't serve 2 masters. Like I have to, if I'm going to do this, I got to do this. So I just, went and worked for a guy for free in Hollywood. That's when I met some of the people we mentioned earlier. So I had a chance to really kind of get into that space and create a value. So now suddenly he's like, hey, you can't leave. I'm like, well, I kind of have to leave if I'm not going to get paid. In 2006, January of 2006, I realized there's a law in California. You can practice under another chiropractor's license if you're an associate, meaning that I don't have my license yet because I'm in school. The buddy of mine he's a pro hockey player. We were at Gold's Gym in Venice, and he was helping me lift, like do biceps or something. And I'm thinking, what does this guy know more than me? And he said, I'm a chiropractor. Oh my God, no way. He said, yeah, you know what? You should come work for me. So in 2006, I started my practice. I started building my clients all through 2007. In October 17th, just a week ago, was my motorcycle accident. So I'm flying down the freeway, on the 10 freeway, splitting traffic like you can in California.
Doing what?
About 50 miles an hour.
50? Okay.
Yeah.
Not crazy.
Not too nuts. The traffic had just come to a stop, and a guy realized he was getting on the 10 instead of the 110 and just veered right in front of me, smacked the side of this car.
Over the hood,
laying there, broke my helmet. It was a pretty good impact. I ended up having soft tissue damage in my neck and on my shoulder. And all of the products that I had at my practice were for more chronic issues, right? Like I don't really have anything in there that I could be like, oh my God, that's going to be great. Even the power dot, like we were talking about earlier, like E-stem would only do a certain amount, you know? So I'm kind of looking around and I'm like, what the hell will people do if they're in this situation? Surgery or drugs or both. And I'm like, I'm still young. I don't want to do any of that. We had a vibrating table in our clinic that you would do traction on. And the vibration, they teach you that the vibration relaxes the tissue. So you can actually get some real strong traction. That's why good places have a vibrating table. Excuse me. So I would sit on that table and it would take the pain away, meaning I could tolerate it for a minute. It wasn't so painful because I had a 9mm disc bulge at C5, C6. Like it could not be ignored. So I would sit on that table. But what happened is, and this is the part of what is so fascinating to me because it was what created this product, is I started learning about vibration to the body. So pain travels to the brain at about 55 miles an hour, roughly. When you put a stimulus on your bodies, cold, wind, heat, pressure, pin points, that information travels to the brain at 268 miles an hour. But the body accommodates to that information really quickly, like your hat or your watch or whatever. You're not thinking about it until I say that. Well, if it's the wrong stimulus, I've tried to think about how to say this, but if it's the wrong stimulus, if it's not enough stimulus, your body gets used to it, takes it, puts it in the subconscious, and you guys know what that's like and what you used to do.
Yeah. Yep.
And stays focused on what's most important. Well, what was most important at that time was my pain. And so this table worked for like 20 seconds and then the pain would come back. And I'd be like, God, that's crazy. So I'm talking to my brother. I have a bunch of brothers. One of them is a chiropractor. He was in a water skiing accident about 2 years before me. I have 2 kids, live in Utah with their mom. And I would fly back and forth while I was going to school every other weekend to be with my kids. We would stay at his house because our kids were the same age. A little background. I would watch him out on his front porch with this like noose thing around his beam and his deck. And he's like vibrating this thing and like pulling on his neck. I'm like, what is he doing? Well, I called him after. I was like, bro, what were you doing? And he said that vibration was like the table and the traction was just me doing traction on my neck. And I was like, oh my God, I want to be able to do that in my house. Like I can't sit here at the office and do this. How did you do that? And he's like, well, I got this thing called a vibracusser. It's about the size of these cans. It has a dial on the bottom of speed. And he said, just go get so do you have one of those? I said, no, I don't even know what that is. My business partner had one and it was like a movie. Literally, he's like, yeah, I think I have one. It's in the closet in there. You can have it. So I go dig this out. I show my brother and he's like, yeah, that's it. So basically what it did is I would turn it on. I would hold it underneath my armpit like this. And I would think that the vibration was going to make the pain stop because I was locally right on it. It wasn't this general area. My body did the same thing. It was like it would accommodate so quickly, especially the more I would hold on to it, the brain was just like, it's not going to work. So I was literally sitting there one day and I'm like, there has to be a better way. Like if vibration's constantly on the body, then the body can accommodate. If I have something that's doing this, what does that look like? You know, and because I had all these background and tools, I was like, should I make that out of a jigsaw? So I literally go to my garage. I started with a Sawzall first, like, I know, right? But then I grabbed a jigsaw and I bent the blade, wrapped a dish towel around the blade, And then I wrapped electrical tape around that just to make sure I wasn't going to cut myself. Because I wanted to see, like, what is this going to do? So I started, doing the thing. And as I was doing it, I realized I was focusing on what I was doing. And the pain wasn't number one. I'm like, that's weird. So I set it down for a second, wait for the pain to come back, because it always did. And then I'd start doing it again. And I'd look at my watch and I'm like, holy shit, like 3, 4, 5 minutes. I'm like, I can breathe, and like I'm not in this sort of tense, painful situation, like at least what I'm feeling. So I thought, my God, this is great. Perfect. I'll use this. Hopefully I'm not taking too long with this conversation.
No, this is the point. Basically, it's necessity is the mother of all inventions.
I say that all the time.
Yeah.
I wasn't looking to make the next coolest thing.
You're looking to
get myself better, So I basically January 1st of 2008 was when I started using this new tool that I made, this jigsaw. By July 4th of 2008, I'd got myself better to the point where I was lifting weights again. I'd got some of my mass back. And now I'm going back to my practice, and I'm starting to work on patients. Never in 1,000 years thinking that I'm going to bring that to the office. And quite frankly, I tell people this, but I thought it was so obvious that someone had to have thought of this.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm like, this is out there somewhere. I'll run into it. I got to focus on being a chiropractor. Well, a couple months later, October, November of 2008, my secretary walks in and hands me some paperwork of this patient. And I'm doing what you do. His age, mechanism of injuries, his diagnostic studies, sort of going through these things. And I'm realizing, like, I'm putting this story together and it's me again. So I'm like, holy crap, this guy, see his insurance, he's a bus driver. I'm like, there's no way this guy's going to get better with what I have in my office. Wonder if that thing will work on him. So I bring him in, take x-rays. I said, hey, when you come back tomorrow to review your x-rays, bring your wife with you. I have something I think would work or help. So he comes back the next day, and I literally snuck this thing into my room, pull out this Makita jigsaw, and I was like...
electrical tape.
Okay. The whole thing. And I'm like, okay, listen, I went through what you're going through, and this is what I think was one of the most profound experiences that drove me through the next 10 years. I said, I use this to get better. I'm going to show you how to do the same thing. I want to empower you to believe you can feel better when I'm not around. And this is what's going to do that. So let me show you how to use this. I would use it on him in the clinic. He'd take it home, see him the next day. So now I'm
not even to mention the liability you probably accepted.
I was like, look, dude, like,
don't hurt yourself. Don't sue me.
You have knives at your house. I'm sure you don't cut yourself every day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So I watched this guy get better. I went, now it's Christmas of 2008. I went home to be with my kids. I came back at the beginning of January, walked in my office, and my secretary says, your patient's back in the room. And as I'm walking back the room, I hear the gun on. And I walked in, and he was sitting there just like nothing was wrong, running around his body. And he was like, Doc, you have to figure this out. Like, this saved my life. And I remember that I talk about this, and I've told this story 1,000 times, but it was like the universe punched me in the chest. It was like a Matrix thing. And I was like, holy shit, he's right. Like, I have to figure this out. And because I saw what it did to him, I saw how impactful it was for me. There was nothing like that in this space. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to figure that out. So the next 8 years, that's what I did. I tried to figure out the science, the technology, like frequency, amplitude, and torque were the 3 things that made this work the way they did, and the specific specs around each one of those.
And so were you self-learning this, or were you finding experts to assist you?
I was anywhere I could go. Yeah. I'm telling you, dude, like it was, I really felt like I have something, but I don't know what it is, and I'll get it into the hands of the people that do and will, and we'll figure it out. And along the way, I kind of taught myself a lot of the science and the use cases. And, we have Therabody University now. It has all these courses that I created back in the day, but it wasn't from me. It was from my experiences. Like, oh my God, that works like that every time. Let me try and put that in a study, doing a study. Oh my hell. So now suddenly we have some new, really cool information. So anyway, we launched, I took the next 8 years. I met my business partner the December of 2015. We launched the company in March of 2016. We launched G1 in June of 16. We launched G2 in July of 17.
So stepping back, so you guys had a prototype as you're putting the business together.
So
are you filing patents at this point?
Yes.
Or you are?
Yeah.
You are.
Yeah, there's patents at the point because I started understanding some of the science behind what I had.
Yeah.
The form factor was something that we were developing. We weren't really sure what that would look like yet. And looking back now, it's easy to say that. But at the time, we were just stumbling around like trying to figure it out.
So I've got to ask, in terms of form factor, did you guys grab the power tool and you're like, this is...
That, for me, I didn't have the budget. So I made 5 different versions over that 8 years. And each one of those versions was a version of a power tool. Mm-hmm. I was trying to get the manufacturers to change the specs on them, mm-hmm. like the amplitude and the torque and stuff. But they were like...
Who are you?
Yeah, right, exactly. So in 2009, this is just an interesting story I'll tell you really fast. 2009, I bought 250 jigsaws from Kawasaki. Borrowed money from my brother, successful chiropractor. Borrowed money from him, buy these guns, and I start taking them apart, putting them back together. I have some people helping me in LA, and I'm selling them as fast as I can make them. And they're costing me $25. I'm selling them for $300. I'm like, this might be a pretty good model here. Let's see how this goes. I sold out those 250 as fast as I could make them. And it was really, that's like where I thought, okay, wow. If you were a guy that bought one back then, I would ask you, tell me what it takes for this to be a perfect tool that you would use in your clinic.
So you're getting customer feedback.
Oh my God.
You're using to iterate quickly. And
yes,
the
we would
next
not
mod.
be where we are if that wasn't if I didn't have that mentality back then, we wouldn't be where we are.
Now the people that were buying these, I mean, are we talking athletes? Are we talking, because I know in LA you got celebrities.
Back then, it was just chiropractors and physical therapists, because I thought
using
at the time,
it in their offices.
I thought that's how it's got to be presented to the world. I didn't think about the athlete perspective of it until later. It was actually sort of an eye-opening experience with Bobby Wagner. I was like, anyway, it wasn't till later that I started realizing like there are other use cases for this, not just in a chiropractor's office. So now it's 2017.
You thought possibly not necessarily a commercial use outside of offices, or that's when you started. You'll just get it to let chiropractors use it, not your everyday.
Yes, dude. Like why would a guy? Like you don't know what to do. That's where my mentality was. Like
that's logic. I think that's natural logic.
So in 2012, 2011, I had made what I thought was close enough version that I could let someone else take it and use it. And I worked at Unbreakable Performance on Hollywood, and there was a bunch of guys there. Chuck, a bunch of people used to go there. So I was exposed to these like broad group of, back then we wouldn't call them influencers, but that's what they ended up being. So suddenly now I'm in the front of all these guys and they're taking my tool from my room. I had a clinic room and it was downstairs underneath the gym, underneath the boxing ring actually. And they would take my stuff and bring it up on the floor and I would like, what are you doing? No. And they're like telling me, I know what I'm doing. So I'm watching, could drop a bunch of names, but there was a bunch of athletes there and I'm watching them use it and I'm thinking, holy shit, they're using it right before they do a box jump. They're using it between their sets as they're doing bench presses. And I'm like, what is going on? That's the first time I thought, oh my gosh, if these guys, and this is before Instagram was really a thing, foam rolling was just barely starting to get kicked off. And these guys started posting because it was a cool thing to post. Look at my muscles, like ripple. And so I'm watching this kind of happen. We grew up basically with Instagram. I mean, that was, if you look back in the day, that was how I got this out there. And waking up one morning and seeing Kevin Hart posting of this therapist that I knew in Birmingham that was in London, that was just outside of London, that was treating his butt and he's being really super funny about it. That wouldn't fly anywhere unless it was on social media. So I see those types of things. That's how we kind of grew up. People started seeing these different use cases.
And you're not having, so you didn't have to pay Kevin Hart. Like, these guys are just, so you're getting free advertisement, which is the best form of advertisement.
The Kardashians posted countless times.
Without ever
saying anything. Ronaldo, same thing.
You see the beauty of that? I mean, because other companies would have to seek them out and pay them big time dollars.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it's all about relationships, and honoring those relationships. And, as a chiropractor, I consider myself lucky, but I also have to make sure that I can't kiss and tell, so that's not part of what I do. And that I've also realized that's part of what's allowed me to do what I'm doing, is having that respect and honor where I'm not going to
name drop.
Yeah.
It's client.
Patient privilege. Yeah.
I'll name drop. I'm not under any contract. I'm looking, no. Okay. So, that's a great,
I forget.
That's a great story.
Coffee is, by the way.
It's good.
Yeah.
Black Rifle Coffee.
Yeah.
They are a strong sponsor for the 777 that we discussed. We have coming up, and I can't thank Evan Hafer, Andy Stump, Mike Glover, Logan Stark, and Jericho Denman, all vets, man. That is a great company in terms of marketing. Those guys are like a Harvard business case example.
Have those
Hilarious.
Guys have your net.
Another one is, have you ever heard of Frog Fuel?
Probably, but
Frog Fuel is Michelle, you'll have to go look this up. It's like a hydro something form of protein that you digest in 15 minutes rather than your whey protein that takes 60 to 90 minutes. Frog Fuel started by a SEAL, Alex Coons.
That's why.
Yeah. Okay. So it's got the big frog with the trident. We've got to throw a frog or a trident on everything. It gets annoying, dude. But no, the shit is good. And it's in a little pouch, like right after a workout or in the gym, 15 grams per pouch.
Is it a powder or a liquid?
Liquid. And they've got one with caffeine, about 80 milligrams of caffeine. And then, so I take the Frog Fuel and the Black Rifle Coffee in the morning. But so before by the time I'm done with my workout, I'm already 45 grams of protein into,
and you don't have all the side effects of inhaling that many.
We had Gabrielle Lyon. She is Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. She's a muscle-based dietitian, and she came in. I think it was about 2 weeks ago. She was on. She's great, and she's also married to a SEAL. We're very incestuous. But she said this, and this doesn't strike me. She said the average man that weighs anywhere from 150 to 200 only gets 100 grams of protein per day because they're not monitoring their macros and what they're intake. Wow. She's like, it's so critical in health. That one, they're not maintaining muscle mass.
That just made me think of the side effects of that. Just crippling over time.
Oh yeah, as you lose muscle mass.
Yeah,
interesting stuff. But but you did have a number of investors. You had built relationships. I know.
So my business partner ended up being my seed investor. He was my first guy that came in.
Traditional business background, highly successful.
Very successful. His family was from Qualcomm, and so he had everything that I needed for this to be successful. And I filled one role, and having someone like him that has the business acumen and the relationships in that world and stuff. So we actually his money brought us through we just closed the Series A.
You're kidding me.
No.
So you guys just didn't need the money up until this point.
We were profitable until a year ago.
To include the acquisitions you made.
Yeah.
Which is why you're probably not profitable because
there's a little bit of setback.
Yeah, but for the growth.
So we did a celebrity round for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
In 2019, 2018. Hopefully those dates are about right. But it was more about Timberlake and 2 Chainz and all these different people. You
got Justin Timberlake?
Yeah.
Shut the front door.
No. Yeah.
All right. He's a office favorite.
So I got to tell you, he had a golf tournament, and I went to in Vegas a few months back, and I hadn't seen him since it happened. I would treat him. So anyway, we were at this golf tournament, and I had a chance to go up to him. I was like, JT, I want to tell you how much that meant to me. He was our first investor. He was the first person that said, I want to put money in. We're like, we're not even set up for that yet. And he ended up bringing some cash. And so I told him, I'm like, dude, you know how much that means to me? And he was like, yeah, I know. It's so funny. He's like, I know. I knew it was going to be a good one. I tell everybody all the time. So I'm like, okay, so it's not a secret. He's like, no, it's not a secret. I want everyone to know. So yeah, it was those kinds of opportunities came along. And I think it's back to what I said a minute ago. It's just relationships and respecting those relationships. And I'm not, I do what I do because I want the effects for you. It's not because I want you to post,
Well, first off, I can't call him JT, so I got to use his full name, Voice of an Angel. But that's not dumb money with celebrities. I mean, that is, so while they may not be engrossed in the business, they are bringing marketing, which is eyeballs. You look at the days of old, and when I say the days of old, that's the 90s, 2000s for us. And, so, and God, I hate to bring the guy who brings up the SEAL aspect of it, but I'm going to, I'm going to end up like that dude outside of a army surplus store, just commenting on everything that somebody buys. And be like, oh, K-bar, I killed a guy with K-bar. No, but there was a lot we did not know. And we were all about performance. I mean, every great culture is about performance at the end of the day. Yeah. But I mean, they always said, hey, the body is so resilient. And you look at Hell Week, they're like, we're not concerned about your body. The body will keep on going, but your mind will break long before. Yeah. Now you fast forward to combat, and what we weren't good at is fight or flight. They talked about the parasympathetic, and then what's the other? Sympathetic. Yeah. Which they always, just for layman terms, to tell us it's basically fight or flight. Yeah. Is that we would be on deployment and it was fight, fight, fight the entire time. But when we came back home, we couldn't turn that off. And additionally, they saw with the endocrine system, and I learned this all from a guy named Dr. Chris Free, who coined the term operator syndrome, looking at special operators and all the impacts. And he said the largest impact they saw was the endocrine system, which had basically shut it down. So your testosterone, your cortisol, and after a deployment, you get back, it would sort of level out. After a deployment, you would recover a little bit. Your testosterone would go back up. But some of these guys had 5, 10, 15 deployments. And eventually it just wouldn't reset. Yeah. And all of a sudden my cortisol is higher than my testosterone. I mean, they didn't start, if you qualified, they didn't start issuing testosterone until about 2012, 2013. And even then the military couldn't do it well because then they weren't putting people on anti-estrogens. So it's amazing. Too, you talk about the brain, because I had the fortunate pleasure of going to something called the National Intrepid Center for Excellence. And it is 3 weeks of holistic medicine, from traditional Western medicine to Eastern medicine. But you're going through CAT scans and MRIs. And, basically the doctors are like, we know so little about the brain. And to us, we're like, what are you talking about? It's 2015. Mm-hmm. They're like, we are just scratching the surface. So this mental space, and I mean, the everyday warrior, we talk about 3 pillars: physical, mental or emotional, whatever you want to call it, especially spiritual. In that mental and spiritual piece, we've barely scratched the surface. But you see these athletes, man, and they don't take time to rest and reflect.
No, I think what you said a minute ago, like back in the day, if you could get by with 3 hours of sleep and crush 2 workouts, like that was your badge of honor.
Can you maintain it?
Yeah, but if you look at things now, the performance athletes, LeBron James, CP3, like all these guys that spend millions of dollars a year on taking care of this meat sack, this vessel we're in. And if you look at what a lot of them do, a lot of them also have these mindfulness coaches. I'm listening to the book for the 40th time called "It Takes What It Takes." It talks about,
written by
I always forget his last name.
And don't worry, like so many brain lesions right here. People are like, hey, even on
it takes what it takes.
On recall on podcasts, I'm like, some guy's name who wrote a book.
Trevor Mowad.
Okay.
He worked at IMG and stuff, but it's really about like taking care of, like I say, we get one body. Warren Buffett said this, and I try to find this because the way he said it is so much better than I'm going to say this. But imagine when you're born, your dad gives you the nicest car you can buy at that time. The catch is you only get that one car for the rest of your life. So if you start thinking about it, where are you going to park it? Who are you going to let drive it? What do you do with the tires? What do you do with the oil? Like you start thinking about what you would do if you had one car for your whole life. Well, we only get one body. So what are you doing with that? And it's not my doctor's job to take care of my sore knee Like I need to be able to take care of those things. If we went to doctor every time we had an issue, like it's probably half the problem with what's going on with healthcare right now. But it's being able to empower people to take care of their bodies, understand their bodies, but then be able to continue doing what they're doing. And back to what I said a minute ago, like if you're not thinking about the mind, if the mind isn't part of what you're doing in a day, then you're showing up half empty, in my opinion. So
your industry is almost, I mean, rest and recovery, but it's almost preemptive.
Well, I was going to say earlier, when you were reading that quote, simplest quote I could say right now is we need to make prevention sexy. Because if it's sexy, people will do it and they'll start to understand it. But you talk to anyone in your space, anyone that's in the athletic space, they understand that. They're starting to recognize like, wow, if I take the right amount of downtime and do it right, I come back even more charged than I was before. So yeah, I think it's the whole shift of, you know, how much pain you could take.
Yeah.
To actually looking at it and being like, okay, I can take a lot of pain, but I also need to take it the other way.
Well, the hardest thing to tell any high performer, again, regardless of industry, is, hey, you just need to sit this one out.
Right. Basically, you're like, there's so many messages in that, you know, there's a way that we could actually get people to understand, like, actually, this is a badge of honor. Mm-hmm. Take some time, breathe, get focused. Because when you come back, you're going to be so much better. And how many times have we been taught this, like, light your candle before you can light other people's, or that whole flight attendant thing where they say, put your mask on before you help someone else. Like there's all these analogies, but we don't do it.
Oh, that's ingrained. I'm saving myself before anyone else. It's just, except my kids. The data has to be there. Cause I do remember at the last command I was at, we used to bring in, who's the kettlebell guy, the Russian, it's, Pavlov or something like that, and we used to bring in like these power lifters, like the strongman guys who legit, and they would basically give us instruction on technique, and it was find the people that are the very best in their industry, and we bring them in to learn from them, because we were a jack of all trades, a master of none. So, I remember one group of guys went out and got the guy who trained all the guys for the 300. It'll come to me. He's a world-class mountaineer. He also had the Jim Jones. You know who I'm talking about.
Yes.
Because he was great at mountain climbing, they brought him in, and he brought him to the mountains. But we brought in the head physical trainer for the Redskins. He was talking about how most injuries don't need to go to surgery, that you can rehab through them. And he was talking about shoulder injuries mainly, is that he would have guys on a protocol every night after practice of the off season, where traditionally doctors would be like, yeah, we need to go in and do surgery, and they'd be out. And he said they would work right through the injury, and the injury would just either wouldn't go away, but the muscles become so strong that
then there's so many things now that you can do that with, that it wasn't like the old days where you had a band and that was all you had. I mean, you put blood flow restriction. There's like all these different things you can do that strengthen muscles. So yeah, the therapy part of that is huge.
Is there any data that shows for every hour of working out, if you give 1 hour of rest and recovery using the tools that you've developed?
Roughly 1-to-1.
1-to-1?
Yeah.
And it will prevent...
if you're taking care of your body the same amount of time that you're beating it up, then your longevity is for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys have branched out. I mean, the Theragun was just beautiful. And it seems like there's been a lot of knockoffs.
Yeah.
Where the patents didn't prevent that, or the patents only prevented that from for a short period of time?
You have to protect your patents.
Yeah.
People don't care that you have a patent.
And so, has this been illegal?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We have in-house legal team. That's all they do. It's 100%.
If not, you'd be paying lawyers through. Yeah.
And we would miss half the stuff, and it would water down our brand. And like, there's a lot of reasons why we have someone that's vigilantly looking for that, because our IP, we have almost 300 patents.
That's insane.
So if we're not,
and your name's on pretty much all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if they're not protecting those patents, then why have them? And we're creating a business with specific IP, like this Theramind, the frequencies that we're using in Theramind. We have a lot of science behind that, but our application of doing that is patented processes. So like, yeah, it's cute. These guys on Amazon are selling a gun for $60 or whatever, but like, you're going to get that. You know what I mean?
Pay for what you get what you pay for.
Yeah. So I think with us, it's being able to continue to make good products and look for opportunities for acquisitions. Like we talked about PowerDot and Recovery Air.
Do you guys have a Chinese knockoff yet?
Oh my God. So many.
On, what's the name of the website?
Alibaba. Yeah. Oh yeah. I get them all the time. That's one of the cool things about having as many employees as we have right now is they're all become our eyes.
Yeah.
No matter where they are.
Yes.
So we're in a lot of different countries. So whether it's Italy, Australia, Japan, you have people that are like texting into our Slack channel in competition saying, I just saw these guys. I got a pop-up the other day of this new looking gun that I thought was a great idea, but their attachment was my attachment. And I'm like, seriously? So send it to our legal team. They send a cease and desist letter. And they tell me a lot of times that their comments back are, we didn't know that was patented.
Yeah, ignorance is not an excuse.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So we're like, okay, well, how many do you have in the market? Well, we
take them all off.
Need a royalty for that. So
is that what usually the deal is?
Yeah, it becomes a big thing. And right now there's a lot of opportunity for us to license some of our technology, which is like a total added bonus. I never thought that it would be that way, but our motor that's in the Gen 5, like that thing will become, in my opinion, a power tool model of how to create a better motor.
Has your loyal fan base become like Apple users that every time there's a gen?
Yeah.
They gen up.
We talk about, 100%. People say that to me all the time. It's too much money. I'm like, what phone do you have? How much do you spend on that every year? You pay for a different phone.
Well, so I went to CPI, Cellular Performance Institute in Tijuana. It's run by Scott Nelson and Ed Clay, two MMA guys, and it's stem cell. And a lot of the athletes have gone down there, and you talked about losing mass, and man, you want to talk about getting in my head. I've lost a lot of muscle mass.
Yeah.
And I'm just coming off the recovery of the stem. And plus I had a hip replacement in December of 2020 and
stem cell's great.
Never got back into it, and my joints are now starting to feel well. I mean, my wife can see it. It plays with my head, man. Getting older and not being able to maintain some semblance of performance, dude, it just plays with your freaking head.
I am 1,000% with you. I jacked my shoulder's still messed up from the accident.
But you can now bench.
I could for the longest time, but it's caught up to me. Like it's as much recovery and everything as I've done, and you pull a tear of labor. I'm like, Theragun's not going to help that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I'm with you, dude. I've lost probably 25 pounds in the last 6 months because it's so painful. I was supposed to have surgery next Tuesday, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
There's always some reason why I can't.
Again, I was down so I had the hip resurfacing, which is, what's the correct word? More intrusive or invasive?
Invasive, yeah.
Because they actually cut the glute to go in and do it. So it's the young man's hip replacement where they take half the femur head and put the metal ball on.
Oh, they did that?
Yes. So that you maintain as much bone.
Which side?
Left.
Interesting.
So you maintain as much bone.
The way you're walking around.
The thing's been great. I was jumping into Mount Everest, not onto Everest.
I was going to say.
Is into to the base camps around Everest less than 9 months later.
No pain at all?
No pain. So
range of motion a bit different?
It's increased.
Oh, wow.
Increased because before the reason I had to get it done is bone spurs and impingement. And now...
And tab them?
Yes.
Wow.
And so now this one has less range of motion. I guess the not good one now, but...
the less bionic?
The funniest thing was... So I did some basic like 2-mile walks or 4-mile walks to get ready for the trails of Everest. We weren't climbing because we were skydiving, but nothing to replicate. One of the days from basically Lukla is the most dangerous airport people fly into to start the trek. And the first part of the trek, you sleep lower in the valley along the river. And then the next day is usually the most difference in elevation to get to Namche.
In the first day.
The second day is the march to Namche. But all of a sudden I'm feeling heat in my left hip, and we're starting to hear a squeak, and everyone's like, "What is that?" And I'm looking at people. I'm like, "What the hell is that?"
Really?
And there was a you know what an Air Force PJ is?
Yeah.
They're like high speed medics in the field. And he's like, "Hey, Mike, just keep walking." He's like right next to my butt. I'm like, "What are you doing, dude?" And he's like, "Just keep walking." He's like, "That's your hip." So we call the surgeon. We're like, "Hey, man, is this something to be concerned about?" And he's like, "No, it's just settling in, and this is the longest hike you've done." And after that, it was
How
fun.
far into the hike was it?
Probably about 3 hours into a 6 hour hike. Yeah. And the funny thing about like, people are like, oh, you climbed Everest, and I didn't climb Everest, is you feel like a little bit of like less of a man, because the Sherpas are carrying everything on the mule,
Those guys
mules.
don't get enough credit.
Dude, and some of the trails we'd make way, because you'd see a Sherpa, because the way they set up their bundles is like there's this piece of cloth on their head with the bar and all, just carrying like 200 pounds.
Those guys need those trails.
Yeah. And so my question is, we've got this 777 coming up. You've got everyone who's pretty much over the age of 40. They're retired special operations guys. We're broke. And a good buddy of mine was a Navy SEAL and then became the doctor to the Navy SEALs. The Navy sent him back. And he said the average amount of surgeries for a SEAL is 11, which seems extremely high through a 20-year to 25-year career. Wow. But what would you recommend for our guys sitting in coach seats? The jumping is the easy part. But for sitting in those seats, you sent me the leg compressions, which we went and trained in Arizona. I use those nightly. Those things are freaking awesome. Yeah. And the ones I love, what I love about yours is they're not attached to anything.
Yeah, no hoses.
So the ones we used at my old command, they had the hoses.
Yeah.
So you can walk around. I know so you've got that. You've got the power dot for muscle stimulation, because I know lower back's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
We'll probably pack a Theragun.
You have to, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially now we have a smaller one.
And I saw that. And that's what you guys just released that one.
We just launched a new, we call it our Mini 2.0.
Mini 2. How long is the charge on that?
190 minutes.
Holy crap.
And it also is connected Bluetooth too, but that probably doesn't matter to you guys when you're out doing what you're doing. But I think for you guys, if you could think about your flights, my recommendation was think about blood circulation.
Yes.
Keep things moving.
Yeah.
Whether that's getting up and walking around. If you're sitting in coach, you can put the boots on. Might be a little weird, but the reason we created them the way we did with sequential compression, it starts at the bottom of your foot and slowly works up, whether your legs are elevated or not. So I was with an athlete yesterday. It was like, I travel with these. I fly with them. She's a big time athlete. She was like, I put them on the airplane. So I think that for a bunch of guys,
I could see that drawing some eyes. Like,
I also think what would be really, really important is for you guys to take some time and zen out. You know, get some music or something that you can like really take. Okay, I'm gonna take the next 30 minutes and I'm gonna really intentionally go in and just sort of think of nothing for as long as I can. Okay, no, that's helpful. Circulation, and then focus or flight. Yeah, sort of shutting down for a little bit. Rest and digest. I don't think there's gonna be much rest, man. I can't sleep. I can't sleep on an airplane to save me. So the goggles, our goggles, you should take the goggles, because if you put those on, I didn't get to explain the other two. Yeah. Relax is basically a massage compression on a part of your head that's specific to relaxing versus focusing. But not intended to put you to sleep. Not intended to put you to sleep. Then we have the sleep mode that is for putting you to sleep. So it has a really low vibration that can kind of lull your brain into this sort of place. So I think you were talking about this earlier, and I'll give you an example, but you can draw the comparisons. There's a soccer player that we work with in the UK. And I was having this conversation with him about, he's like, when would I use these goggles? And I said, I was with him for a couple of days, so I kind of knew what was happening. I'm like, well, yesterday you had a game in the afternoon and you didn't sleep the night before because you had a game. And then the game starts and you take a bunch of caffeine to play the game. Now it's 1 a.m. You're back to the hotel, your house, whatever. You're not going to go to sleep. So now you have, the next 3 hours where your body's just cranking, adrenaline's flying. Throw them on there. Like, now you can actually bring your parasympathetic down, bring your parasympathetic on, and now you can really rest and get your mind right. It's the mind that's the noisy part. It's not the body. So yeah, to me, I think those are applications that we're missing, that people aren't doing. And I think it's becoming more of a thing now. People are starting to realize that. So the next couple of years are going to be a lot of fun for us, for some of the technology we're coming out with. And I'm assuming you hooked up all the nodes
to people on the different forms, especially sleep and watch the brain activity.
Oh yeah. Still gathering that. I think that's one of the main reasons we partnered with Aura.
Okay.
Is they're really heavy on sleep and the data they capture on that. And for us, we can actually, if you had an Aura or whatever you wore, and I implemented some protocols, you can see a difference. There are markers where it's like, oh my God, I made a difference. We shouldn't be so surprised. You know what I mean? Because it's but you have to take time to sharpen the saw.
And is that part of Therabody University? Are you guys also, is there an R&D testing?
We have science and research. Mm-hmm. They're tied to innovation. So we have an innovation group. I'm part of that group. And then we also have an education team, which basically runs Therabody University. And then different versions of that. So we just launched a recovery lounge at LinkedIn headquarters in San Francisco, just outside of San Francisco. And the support for that comes from the Therabody University. So they have people that go out and educate, teach people how to use it, and that kind of thing. And then we have our retail locations. I don't know if you knew about that.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, they're called Reset locations. And Reset, obviously.
Yeah.
That's obvious, an easy word. But we have 5 actual centers where you can go, and it's amazing recovery. All the latest trends.
So not only buy your products, but also it's almost like a therapy.
Yep. You can go back and get cryo, red light, double gun treatments. I've certified so many people to teach how to use Theragun on people, do a double gun sweep on them and stretch. So we provide that in 5 of our locations. We have 22 just straight retail. You can go in and experience it. The reason we did that, we learned early on, you have to feel it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm sitting here blowing smoke. This is going to change your life. Take headaches away. Whatever your issue is, it's going to fix that. What? But if you can go in and try it, that's basically what's driven us to these retail locations.
Where are those 5 locations for those listening?
Brentwood in California. There's one in Brentwood and one in Manhattan Beach. There's one in Houston, Chicago, and Philadelphia, Fishtown.
Okay. And then
we're opening a new one in New York.
Okay.
In June of next year, hopefully.
Is the intent to turn these into chiropractic sort of?
No, I think the intent was to democratize a lot of these modalities that were behind a doctor's door.
I love the words right there.
So let's get this from behind the gatekeeper and put it out there. Just add some protocols and simple use cases where it's not that hard. I mean, we have a medical director because we provide IVs and stuff at different locations, but we don't need one for what we're providing. And that's the whole goal. Whether we franchise it one day or whatever, but we've figured out what we feel like is a pretty good recipe. And it's geography, like where it's located and all those types of things. But we feel like if we have something strong enough the next year or so, then there might be an opportunity to franchise, but got people all over the world that have seen them and want them.
Yeah.
So
and I understand too, if your insurance doesn't cover it, it can be cost prohibitive to go to a chiropractor for some people. Time. No, that is the beauty. You guys really are innovating in the space. That's what I think is separating you from everyone else. With the innovation cell.
Yeah, that's what drives me and our team is finding new ways to use frequency. And I mean, both how often you use it and what it is that you're using to affect your body in a positive way, whether it's performance or sleep. So that's our driving sort of motivation behind that. So myself and our head of our lead engineer, who's kind of over innovation, and our science guy, his name's Tim. He came from Gatorade, was there forever. We just took a little road trip and went up and visited the person to discuss where this mental side of things is going.
Yeah.
And what is psilocybin? What's that? Where's that space and what's happening in there? Because we can't ignore that, right? And for me as a holistic doctor, I'm like, man, there's so much good behind that. Let's get that out there instead of this stigma. So there's a lot of really cool opportunities for us to still continue to grow. And that's what we're focusing on with innovation. And innovation isn't just the products. It's like, it's being prepared for these opportunities that come along. We did CBD. Well, CBD wasn't like a thing, but we got in at the right time. We knew what we were doing. We found the right recipes, the right people. We launched a product that everyone was like, why are you doing that? Well, because it's like, I can't ignore that, you know?
Yeah.
So it's probably one of the funnest parts of my job right now is I get to spend a lot of time on new products and what that looks like in innovation.
Yeah. The psychedelic market will come. Yeah. I mean, so I went and did the psychedelic therapy. They were sending a lot of SEALs in Mexico through a nonprofit. Just
life changing, huh?
Oh yeah. And then microdosed afterwards on psilocybin, and it was talk about a mood enhancer, man.
Our medical director's name is Dr. Ryan Green. He's from the military special forces.
Love those guys.
Super cool guy.
Yeah.
And he's a osteopath, owns a company, and he is heavily into the plant medicine world for therapeutic reasons.
It's a plant. Here's my
Earth.
personal uneducated sort of opinion is, again, it's these religious preconceived notions. And dude, I'm a Catholic. I'm a very Catholic family from the Bay Area, but some people just need, some people need to get over those. If it unlocks, especially, so you look at Ibogaine, and Ibogaine has helped so many people with addiction, whether it be alcohol, or let's say hard drugs. It is a tool we need in the United States. And Dan Crenshaw, the SEAL, had just, well, I think, interestingly, alongside AOC, they did together, submitted a bill for the VA to start utilizing psychedelics as a form of treatment for post-traumatic stress.
Yeah, Ryan's doing that. So he's actually one of the guys that's helping the VA in LA.
God bless him.
Yeah, so he and I are having some serious conversations about what that looks like over the next 10 years.
Yeah, University of Texas just stood up a center for psychedelic therapy as well.
Yeah.
Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on. We do end this with a couple questions. We get a little vulnerable. We want to leave. We want to leave the people with some nuggets, because again, we always say on this podcast is that success leaves breadcrumbs. Follow somebody who's successful. There's little breadcrumbs. Not that path will necessarily work for you, but there's some nuggets you can take away and apply to your path. So, first one is biggest failure in your life, what you learned from it, and how you recovered. I think you might have said it earlier.
I actually do I have a presentation that I do on failures, and it's about failures. So I hope you don't mind if I give you my little twist on this, but I don't see them. I used to see them as failures, and with that came lumps that I would give myself, you piece of this and that. But I've started to recognize, and you hear it all the time, but what did I learn from this? So your follow-up question, that's what's put me where I am today, is failing and learning and failing and learning. And if there's another word for failure, I mean, I mentioned earlier the guy that embezzled money and I had to file bankruptcy. What? That wasn't part of my roadmap that I wanted in my life. So I look at that. At the time, it was really tough, but I realized I had to get through that, and getting through that and learning about credit reports and that credit score world and all of these things that I would have never learned. So I learned, that's a big thing I learned, was the financial side of things. I've been through a divorce, and that's tough. I have 2 kids that are in their early 20s that went through that, and watching the consequences of that, but also having this opportunity to teach and learn. Mm-hmm. My daughter called me on the way here, and she had a rock hit her windshield, and she was like the end of the world, which we just replaced it. All this, whatever the list of things are that put her in that state, to be able to get on the phone and then coach her through hey, take some time to cry about this, but then you got to get up and go make shit happen.
Yeah.
So I think for me, those are some of the things that stand out. Let me think of another one. When I created the first Theragun, that one I talked about, I bought 250 of those. Dude, it sounded like a chainsaw. sparks flew out the sides.
No shit.
Yeah.
One of them caught on fire.
When you started it and released it. So I'd have to like cover my patient's hair, make sure they don't have a sweater on. But that was a huge failure. But it taught me so much the next time. It was almost like I wanted to fail. So a lot of my life, I tried to avoid it. And now I walk towards it.
Mm-hmm. So opportunity for growth. That's what it is.
Always.
You learn more from failure than you do from success. And I love how you just said, we have a phrase here in the Everyday Warrior. We are releasing a book January 10th when I'm on the expedition, which was not planned. So I get to miss all the media hoopla, which I actually see as a positive.
Yeah, right.
I've got 3 contributors. They can have fun with that. Is get shit done, make shit happen, do it all again tomorrow is sort of our mantra for warriors.
I like that.
Yeah. So, we also ask, what are those 3 core tenets, those keys to success for Jason that have had statistically led to good outcomes in your life? Those things that are not negotiable for you.
Consistency, persistence, and delusion.
Okay. Give me the definition on all those. Consistency and persistence, some people may.
Is having character. Consistency to me is the ability to follow through with the decision after the emotion of making the decision is gone. So that's to me what consistency is. Habits. There's a lot of things going around right now about habits. You wake up in the morning. If you have to negotiate with yourself whether you're going to go running or not, you've already lost. Like, get up, take care of it. So that's to me consistency. I got to get up tomorrow and do the same thing. I'm going to have my perfect day. And what's my perfect day? And be consistent with that. Persistence is, man, sometimes I heard no 1,000 times.
Yeah.
We can't do that. We can't make that. Well, then you're not the right person. So next, people told me all the time, you can't make your science quiet. I'm like, we can put a man on the moon. Why can't you make this quiet? Okay, you're not the right guy. So next, that's persistence, being able to continually just drive. And then a little bit of delusion.
And I've never heard this one before. So
delusion is believing in things that everyone else around you doesn't believe in.
I love that.
And I realize when people call me crazy that I'm on the right path. Typically. There's no way you can do that. Perfect. Then that's what I'm doing. So those 3 things, and I talk about it a lot because it's the same thing I share with my kids. It's the same thing that I share with our company. We have
I love that
hump day with Dr. J where I do like this little sort of talk with the company, and those 3 things. And it takes a little bit of delusion in the other 2 as well. You know what I mean?
Everyone thinks you're delusional and crazy until you're successful.
Right.
And they're like, hey, we were right behind you the whole time. Shut up. Lastly, and Jason, you've had a ton of success, man, and you are evolving the chiropractic space and preventive medicine and recovery and
thank you.
And all that. And that's, I love stories like that, especially your story where you were laying floor until, you had a bad incident and it completely put a fork in your life that necessarily you probably wouldn't have went down unless that happened. Yeah. But when all is said and done, let's say 40 years down the line, what will be your legacy? What do you want your legacy to be? What is most important as you look back in your life? I know this one's
no, I like this one. I kind of know what I want to say, but I want to give some context. You know Joe Dispenza?
Yeah.
Dr. Joe?
Yeah.
I love him. And he said that his wish is that we could get the world to meditate all together for 1 minute. And in my mind, if that's my bullseye, if that's my North Star, what are the things that have to collectively happen for that to take place? That's what I hope people tie me to, is something like that. I was able to make products that affected your nervous system in a positive way, whether it's performance or sleep or rest, that continue to allow you to live life, to do the things that we're supposed to do here on earth, to be able to take advantage of all of these experiences we have around us. So to me, that's kind of what I hope. I know it's not like a word or like a phrase or something, but it's really being able to positively affect people's nervous system. And that meditation thing that Joe talked about was like so inspiring. Easier said than done, but at the same time, not that hard
to make happen.
There's the delusion a little bit, right?
it is possible. I used to love to say in special operations, we had a way of making the seemingly impossible possible. And when we did the trailer video for 777, I said that. Said, what did JFK say? We do things that are hard because nobody else will do them. And that's the American way. And that's sort of where it comes from. But I can't thank you enough for coming on. Of course, people can find you, the Instagram handle, which is, you guys have a massive following as well.
It's at Therabody.
At Therabody, or for the products, go direct to the site.
You can direct to the site, therabody.com. Mm-hmm. I'm Dr. Jason Wersland on Instagram, Dr. J. I think people that are listening, look at why we create the products we're creating. We're not a product company. Mm-hmm. We're an ethos company. And I think if people can look into that a little bit and understand where our intentions are as a company, then they'll recognize this isn't about sales, although that's what it takes to run a company. But it's more about your experience and how we can have, I can't tell you how many people right now, we came out with a knee thing, and it's like, it's like you buy a purple car, and you see all these purple cars everywhere. We have this knee thing, and now it's like, I'm here. It's everyone. Can I get one of them?
And the knee thing is basically, it rotates between hot and cold therapy.
Yes. Yeah, we call it Recovery Therm Knee, and it has iceless ice, which gets down to about 8 degrees Celsius on a consistent basis in seconds. And then it flips to heat, so it'll actually do cryotherapy for you. So but my point is, like, there's so many opportunities for people to experience things they haven't before because they thought, I have to get that from my doctor. No, you don't. Go on our website, you buy it, and there's protocols. It's connected to Bluetooth. It'll show you so that's where we're innovating. I think is the ability for people to apply them in their lives and have it be effective. Some people that are older, like, why? I know I need a Theragun, but how do I use that? So that's also part of the innovation story for us.
And guys, go check out this stuff, because a lot of the things that you guys have on the market can be done at your desk in your office. Literally. Which, again, you said 1 hour or 1-to-1 ratio. You could actually do a 1-to-3. You work out for 1 hour.
God.
You could do therapy for 3.
How much better it would be if you did that?
Yeah. Well, same thing with the power dots. I'll throw those in, usually on the shoulders, and then just put the sleeve down, and nobody knows they're there, and I just keep rotating on the. But no, again, Dr. J, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
I want to thank the sponsors for hosting this. And hey, guys, we are doing this for the next few months because it's dear to my heart. Please go check out legacyexpeditions.net, primarily the 777 expedition. We are trying to fundraise for Folds of Honor, which provides educational sponsors or sponsorships to military families and now first responders. It's dear to our heart. Also, we uphold the legacy of our fallen and also educate their legacy, the ones they left behind. Everyone will thank you for your service until you ask them to make a sacrifice. And I'm asking you to make a sacrifice now, even if it's $1. Go to 777, that is TRIPLE, the number 7.givesmart.com. It'll take you to the Folds of Honor donation page. And please help us out. This is a good story of a couple bunch of broken soft guys that are going to set 2 world records. And right now we need a good story in this country compared to what we're facing with all the divisiveness. So again, 777.givesmart.com. Go make a donation. And Jason, thanks again for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you again on the Everyday Warrior.